been a definitely my.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody said.
Thank you. I'm here to introduce my friend Aiden. I met him 3 years ago, and he was a wreck. And he came an emotional wreck, and the guy you see sitting there today after 3 years is a totally different person, and he's become one of my best friends. And we do things outside the program together, and sometimes I don't know who's helping who, but we're going through this thing together. And without further ado, my friend Aiden.
My name's Aiden. I'm an alcoholic. Hi. Thank you, Tony. Congratulations on 10 months. It's a big accomplishment. You've now not only had a sobriety baby, but you've raised it for a month. So congratulations. Keep that thing alive. And as far as Tony, thank you for the introduction. Tony's my sponsor. And we've done the steps together and done a lot of things together. And I'm really grateful to have him in my life and a connection that I will always have. There's a lot of people here. I was thinking about writing down a little list of things, but I said, you know what, AA is about speaking from the heart and just kind of winging it. So I'm just going to tell my story as it is, try from start to finish. I'm not usually a nervous person. I'm not scared to speak to people, go up to people, sing in front of people. But when somebody asks me to speak for AA, I think it brings up a little bit more because of how much this program has actually meant to me as an individual. Not only to me too, but the other people in my life. But to get things started, I'll talk about how it was and what it was like, what happened, and now how it's different. These two guys at the end of the table right here, I'm going to call them out right now. They're going to be staring at me the whole time. And they already said they were. So how it was, how it was for me. When I was younger, I always had a lot of energy. I still do to this day. It comes in bursts for sure, but I remember being super young, 5, 6, 7 years old. I was very heavily involved in all sorts of sports. I come from like a pretty athletic family, and I have 3 brothers. And I was always doing something. I was always moving, always trying to get my hands on something. I guess when I was really little, like the first thing that I had memorized is when I was 2 years old, my mom said I would walk around saying the Pledge of Allegiance all the time. And then she said that I was already walking by the time I was around 10 or 11 months old. So I just wanted to get my hands in everything. I wanted to like try and be in everyone's business and figure it out. But with that came a lot of, I think, anxious energy. I just remember being little and having this feeling that I wanted to prove everybody around me and my family members, I wanted to do as much as I possibly could for others, but never really know how to do anything for myself, which led me to trying to make a lot of people happy, and even from a young age, and then being alone with myself and not really knowing who I was. And I think that it's important to mention that those early feelings before alcohol was ever a thought, because later on in the story, when I start talking about alcohol, those things remain a constant and are fluid throughout the whole thing. Yeah, I played a bunch of sports, like I said, and that kind of became my identity. I was super heavily involved in that and super close with my family and my brothers and my parents. And the thing about alcoholism is that I come from a very loving family that has given me everything I could have ever asked for. But the disease does not discriminate. It does not matter where you come from, you know, who raised you, what you look like, it can still get you. And it did that to me. By the time I was in middle school, and further years, I think that there was just a part of me that was missing that's talked about a lot in here. I was told like, oh, you're very good at this, or you're very good at that, or you're very good at this, and you're very good at that. And I would just remember that there'd be moments where I would be in my room or talking with my parents or something, and I would just be breaking down crying and like, how am I good at this? How am I good at that? But why am I not good at myself? Why am I not good at knowing these things? Why do I not feel comfortable? Um, why, why can't I sleep? Why is it hard for me to sleep when I'm such a little, like just a kid going through middle school? Why am I completely tired? I had a long day and yet I'm just laying in bed and everything's bouncing off walls. And that had an effect on me. And I think I used um sports and these outside things when I was younger to really try and hold down the thoughts that I was feeling. And it worked for quite a while. Having that structure in my life and having those things. And as I went through high school, some more things started to pop up. I had someone in my family who um, struggles with some mental health stuff and lived right across the street from me. And I remember in high school when I was about, I would say 14, 15, my freshman year of high school, that these things had kind of been just pushed to the side a little bit. I had never really noticed them. My older brother had moved out of the house though, and he was in school and college, and I was kind of like the older brother in the house. And I just remember that this person, one day they'd show up a different way, and then the next day they would show up and it would be completely different. And it was very unpredictable, and I did not really know what to do. And as someone who wants to make other people try and feel safe, I felt entirely powerless over the situation. And it was incredibly difficult. I saw my parents very distraught. And yet I felt like I had to try and keep it together a little bit because I had two younger brothers and they still knew this person as someone they loved. And they didn't know this person was affected by the things that I knew they were affected by. And so I felt like I had to keep this under wraps, and it was incredibly difficult for me. And I remember around that time, it was like my first experience of where, okay, maybe you need a therapist, you know, maybe you have some issues, maybe you know, just staying busy is not going to be the answer to all of your problems all the time. Um, and so I went through that first year, and I remember that first year of high school, I was just so depressed and down, and I did not know what to do. I started to create some resentment towards this person in my life, and confusion, and asking the questions, why this, why that, why me? But then also at the same time feeling like I don't deserve to struggle, feeling like I don't deserve to be mad or upset, or I don't deserve to be feeling anxious. I have a great life. I have all these things. You know, my parents gave me these things and set me up for these great opportunities, and like I put myself in these positions. I don't deserve to feel this way. So it created this huge disconnect internally, um, when I have these things going on, but yet my own mind is trying to justify why it's not okay for me to feel upset or to feel sad. Um, and that continued for a little bit, but things got a little bit better, a little bit better. Um, and around my sophomore year of college, um, I remember I still had, or sorry, sophomore year of high school, I still hadn't drank at this point. I still didn't want to drink. Didn't have an urge, didn't have a desire. Um, just wasn't a thing in my life. I didn't really expect to do it at all. I was around it a lot growing up on around the holidays and stuff. I didn't have a bad experience with alcohol per se. Most of the people in my life were very happy when they were drinking. But it was still around me, and it was still a thing. And I remember there was a very formative day. It was 2016. It was February 8th. I was getting my license that day. It was going to be, everybody's super excited, especially my mom. She didn't want to drive me around anymore to everything. And I lived about 30, 45 minutes from my high school. And so she was just absolutely stoked. And so I had some freedom, that day was going to be my day to have some freedom. And then I decided I wanted to play a sport in the spring, and I really wanted to play golf, but my mom wouldn't let me play golf because she said, you know how to play golf. You've played since you were a little kid. If you want to add another thing to your list, it has to be something you've never done before, be something you have no idea how to do, which I'm grateful for. She pushed me in ways like that. And so I decided to try out for the tennis team, and I was super excited about that. My family and extended family has this thing called the White Trash Wimbledon every Easter, which is where we basically get around. Dads pull their hamstrings, and we play in this big tennis tournament. And it's a huge thing. There's a trophy, and if you win, you get your name on the trophy, and you get to keep it for the next year until Easter. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna play tennis. White Trash Wimbledon's a great time. I'm sure it's not much different. Yeah, it's probably the same thing. And so I had tennis tryouts that day, and I was super excited. And I remember my mom picked me up from high school to go drive me to the DMV, and I was on my way to the DMV, or in the car. I got in the car, and both my little brothers were in the car, and my mom just kind of gave me a look, and I knew something immediately was off. I didn't know what, but I knew something was off. And basically, she had told me that. I mean, I refer to him as my uncle, but it's my dad's best friend since he was a baby. Had passed away that morning unexpectedly, and we were together the night before because it was the Super Bowl. So I had saw him the night before, and his little daughter, and him and I were very close. He was somebody that was very. He was fun. He was a little hard loving. If you didn't know him, you might think, oh, this guy's kind of a dick. But if you knew him, you knew he'd do anything for you in the entire world, and he'd sacrifice anything. And so all of a sudden, this day turned into something that was not necessarily excited about. So in my driver's license photo, my eyes are bloodshot red. Because I was crying on the way there. And it's funny because he was the person who started the White Trash Wimbledon. And so I got to go after the driver's license and try out for the tennis team. And I still went, and I made the team. And yeah, but I remember that night I was picking up some people who had gotten together, just family members, because they, were confused. And it was the first night I had my license. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of yelling, and I was kind of the designated driver, hurting inside because I wanted to mourn, but there was just I couldn't, and that I felt like I couldn't in that time because there was people around me who needed more help than I did, and I just remember driving home in my car, and these people that I look up to and still look up to this day, just screaming and crying and yelling. And yeah, it was just not the greatest time. And I remember after that, things changed a little bit. I went throughout high school. I got a girlfriend, my first girlfriend, which was a great thing for a while. And luckily, I still know that person to this day, but when I would be driving, or when I'd be by myself, or when I'd do something, my heart would just start pounding, and I didn't know why. And then all of a sudden my breathing would start going, and then I couldn't feel my hands, and then my whole face would go numb, and I would just be holding my hands. I couldn't move them. And then my vision would go, and I would start to have panic attacks, pretty regularly. It was, I don't know if anybody's had a panic attack, but the ones that I was having were like completely debilitating. Like I could not function as a human. I couldn't speak. I couldn't, like my vision would go blurry. Um, Afterwards I would have just crazy headache and just like sleep for hours. And I would get these panic attacks. I would get them, it started out as maybe like once every so often, and then it was like once, twice, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, once a day. And all while I was doing this, I had all this stuff that I was upkeeping in my outside life, trying to maintain this image of myself for the people around me, when inside I was just absolutely crumbling. And I remember one time at school, I started to get one, and I had no idea what to do. And so, because I didn't want anybody to know, and so I just went, and nobody really knows this, but I just went and I got in the trunk of my car in the parking lot and just shut the trunk, and then just laid in there for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And this would happen a lot. And finally, I brought it to the attention of the people around me and my parents, and they got me some help, and I started working with the therapist and stuff, and it helped a little bit. And then this is where alcohol starts to like sneak its way in, just plays a little bit of Punxsutawney Phil here, just kind of peeks his head out and then goes back into hiding for a little bit. But I remember my friends and I had like my first couple drinks, and it was cool. I did the classic high schooler move, went straight for the Mike's Hard Lemonade. Real soft stuff. Yeah. And I remember the first time I was feeling kind of buzzed or drunk. I was like, oh, this isn't so bad, but it's not something that I really enjoy. My friends seemed to like it a lot more than I did. And I'd much rather take care of them right now than I would like continue. So I didn't really drink it. I had a lot of things on my mind, and I wanted to, go on to college and go play sports and go play professionally and try and figure that out. And so I didn't really touch it too much. And then I continued to go on, and I continued to still have these panic attacks. They subsided a little bit, but were still pretty bad. I still had some of these outside issues that were haunting me a little bit. And I decided towards the end of my junior year, I committed to play soccer at a school in Northern California. And I was very, very excited. It was this big opportunity, Division I school. I get to go do this thing I love, have a great time. So I decided to really focus on that, and just really go all in with that. And so I wasn't really having any issues, and I get to college and I get there, and we have to show up like a month early for preseason stuff. And I've worked out hard all summer, and I've done all these things, and everybody's super proud of me, and I have no idea how to be proud of myself. Just looking for the next fix, in quotes, at that point, to try and find the next thing. And I got hurt in like the second week. And then this is where the impulsiveness, the compulsiveness, everything starts. I got hurt. I was at practice the next day or maybe 2 days later, and was just on the sidelines trying to figure out what I was going to do. And some of my coach at the time just kind of stomping around, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I impulsively went up and quit the one thing that was holding my whole entire life together right there on the spot. And that's when everything changed for me. I quit that and felt good about my decision at first. And then immediately I had all this time on my hands, and I had no idea what to do with it. And plus all the time on my hands, I had all the thoughts coming back, and staying there, and I didn't know how to make them go away. So gradually I started drinking, and I started drinking a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And I remember it was the very first day of my freshman year. This was like the very first day the classes had started, and it's like the first week of school, you do a syllabus week, so there's really no homework or anything. And I felt deathly ill, and yet I got so drunk that night and went out and went to all these different parties, saw all these different people. Didn't even end up staying at my own place. Woke up the next morning, was like hallucinating. I guess I had strep throat, and then I got a really high fever. And my remedy the next morning was just like, oh, I need to drink a little bit more. I've heard about this before. I feel like I kind of know what I need to do. And that didn't work out. I ended up in the hospital. I had my ex-girlfriend at the time and I had been broken up for a couple weeks, and she found out, no, we got back together. I don't know, because I was in the hospital. There's probably another program for that. It starts with this C, ends with an A, and there's an O and a D in the middle. And you know, that's kind of when I just remember that's kind of when everything changed for me. I had no way to combat these feelings. I felt so lost inside, and I felt dirty. I didn't like who I was at all. I remember I'd wake up in the morning or the afternoon, and I would go to the bathroom and I'd see myself in the mirror, and I would just say like, what are you? Who are you? What are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Why are you around? Like, you have no idea who you are. You have no purpose. What are you doing with yourself? And that continued throughout that first year. And I remember, at the beginning, I was pretty good at keeping it under wraps. And my parents were always very supportive of me, and they're very realistic too. They were, like, even in high school, they're like, if you are going to have a drink or if your friends are going to come over and drink, that's fine. We're not going to try and stop you because we know your age and we know what happens at that age. But when your friends come over and they stay the night, you just have to give us your keys. So they were very like realistic and responsible and knew what was going on. But I tried to keep this under wraps. And then in my story, alcohol wasn't the only thing. Soon, other substances started sneaking into my life. Well, I wouldn't say sneaking if I just opened the door and say, "Come on in." So it's not really much of a sneak. But all of them, I was trying to fill this void. I was just trying to fill the void. And if somebody asked me what my favorite drink was, I'd probably say everything. And I'd probably say my favorite drink also comes in powder form and other forms as well. It literally has no identity. I just became a dumpster for just anything I could get my hands on. And it became so dark, and I was not going to class. I was not doing anything. I would wake up at noon, check the menu for the dining hall. One time I was in my room and checked the menu for the dining hall that day, and they had these chicken tenders that I really liked. And I jumped up really fast, and I was on a bottom bunk, and I hit my head. And I started having headaches, and I guess I had got a concussion. I went to the doctor on campus, and they're like, "How did it happen?" I was like, "I literally have no idea." Too embarrassed to tell the story of how it happened. But my life was slowly a mess. But yet, I was trying to maintain for all these people that I had around me. I was trying to maintain my image for my family, for my little brothers, for my little brother's friends, people that I had been told looked up to me. And so I tried to do this and do this and do this. And I would just be playing music all day long, just lights off in my dorm room. And one day I just kind of had enough. I don't know what it was. My mental health was so low. I was about 19, and I called my mom because I didn't know what to do, and my mom and I are super close. We have a very, very close relationship. I'm definitely a mama's boy at heart, although I love everybody. But we were just very close, and so I didn't know what to do. And I decided to come home. I decided to leave that school, withdraw, and come home. And at first, it was an okay decision. I was just so sad, and they got me a counselor, who I thought was just a therapist at first, but now that I know it, it said like substance abuse counselor right on the front door. But I would just walk right through it every time and just be like, "Yeah, I'm here for therapy." And that was the beginning. And slowly and surely, I started damaging not only myself more, but the relationships that I had in my life. I was now at home, so everything was seen in full throttle. I remember I would leave. There was one time where I left for like 2-3 days, and just because I wanted to, just like sleeping on my friend's couch, just or not sleeping, usually staying up for 2-3 days, and it was horrible. My parents were worried sick. My mom wasn't getting any sleep at all. Um, she didn't know what to do. My brothers were there, seeing the whole thing. And yeah, I remember my younger brother, who's the closest to age in me, he I would get him to like get me things when I was drunk. I'd be like, oh, you know, Papa's feeling a little sick right now. Can I have some cereal? And he would like, oh, make me cereal and stuff. And so he saw this firsthand, and they were scared too. They didn't know what to do. And anytime I was not drunk or I was not using, um, there was that part of my brain that chirped in that knew exactly what I was doing, and just could not bear with the pain of the people around me that I was hurting. And so I continued to live like that for quite a while, for, I don't know, the next year, 2 years. And I eventually had left, moved out, because my parents, with some tough love, had just said, like, I don't know what you're going to do, but you just need to leave. Just like either need to leave or you need to get sober. And obviously I'm not going to get sober. So I left, moved into this like shitty little apartment. It was so bad. All my roommate and I had was a couch, a coffee table, and those like neon lights that go on your ceiling. I had a bed on the floor and one Rick and Morty poster on my wall. And I had never even seen the show, but I was like, this is what people like. This is what people like, I was like, if I bring a girl over, she's gonna see that Rick and Morty poster and be like, funny guy, funny guy. Yeah, yeah. So that's how my life was. It was things, it was beautiful. Mattress on the floor. It was great. I would stay up for days at a time. My roommate, who was a very nice person, I brought them down the rabbit hole with me, slowly but surely. And I lasted about 3 or 4 months in that place until I hadn't slept in 3 or 4 days. I was talking. We had a TV, but it wasn't plugged in because we never got Wi-Fi, so we couldn't get the TV to connect to anything. And so I was sitting there, and I thought there was something on the TV, and my roommate was there, and something along the lines of like, "Oh, I love this show." Da, 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 da. And he's like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, it's not plugged in." And I woke up, and a couple weeks before that, my parents had known what was going on, and they had sent me on a little like 2-day excursion with this life coach guy, who basically just kind of said like, oh, there's this thing that you can do if you feel like you're struggling. And I was like, I'm not struggling at all. I'm living on my own, paying for rent on my own right now. Like, I'm fine. I'm delivering pizzas, dude. This is the dream. Come on. I'm like, yeah, what are you talking about? And so I remembered what that guy had said, because I was at a place where, and I'm sure many have been there before, where you don't want to be alive, but you also don't want to die. And you don't know how to live, but you don't want to not live, because there's people in my life that I need to be alive for. And if I didn't feel such responsibility to other people and to other things in my life, there's no way I would still be here today. And so I called my parents, and in 2020 of May, and I went to a program for 90 days. And, I showed up to the program thinking it was 6 weeks. It's going to be a 6-week program. And then slowly but surely, I convinced myself, maybe I'll try 6 months. Maybe I'll try, stay sober for this long. Maybe I'll try a year. And I went through the program and then moved to San Diego afterwards, was having a great time, gotten a beautiful relationship with somebody that I've known since I was a little kid. And then a week shy in 2021 of my 1 year, I decided I was at a party with some friends that I've had since I was a child, and I just picked up a drink and drank it, and immediately felt horrible. And then was in and out, in and out, in and out for the next 6, 7 months. And my drinking at that point never exactly returned to the place that it had been before, but my actions returned to the place that it had been before. And the confusion between, like, I'm not as bad as I was before on drinking, but yet I am a dirtbag right now. I am a thief. I'm a liar. I'm a cheat. Why am I doing these things if the one thing that made me do all these things is not involved anymore? And so, deep hole of depression, and suicidal ideation. I remember one night I just decided to drive myself to the hospital, which was interesting because I was at the hospital for, maybe 2 hours. And I had talked about how I was suicidal, did all this, all that, and how I wanted to kill myself and all this. And then they had just asked me a couple hours later, like, how are you feeling? And I was like, I think I'm a little better now. And they're like, all right, sounds good. See you later. Which is kind of insane, to be honest. I would hope that if I was in a position, I would be a little bit more inquisitive in that and try and provide some more help. But it was around Christmas of 2022 and 2021, and I got COVID. It was also my birthday, and I was alone, and I hadn't seen my family, and everybody knew what was going on. I had broken up with that girl, more so she had broken up with me, and I wanted to die. And I wasn't even really drinking, and I'm like, I want to die right now. And so I decided to start drinking heavy. And my parents came out to visit me because it was my birthday, and I told them everything was fine. They said, you can leave next week. Well, at first I said, I want help. And then they came down to visit, and they said, okay, you can leave next week on Tuesday. And I said, that's way too fast. I was like, next week on Tuesday, it's Sunday. Like that, you can't say next week when it's like 2 days away. And so I said, no, I don't want the help. And then 4 or 5 days later, I had called them because I wanted to help. I had been sober. I got a taste of what it was like. I had done the steps. I had sponsees at one point in that first year. And I had created connections with people down there, and I saw like a glimpse of the beauty of the program and what it could do for a person like me. And I just knew that the only thing that I could do was just drop everything that I had in front of me, which was practically nothing, and just surrender and just give up. It was the end for me. I mean, I put down the shovel because I just didn't want to dig anymore. And I decided that would be it. And so I went back to the same program I went to, and I went for 30 or 60 days. And then I didn't know where to go afterwards. Was just going to go back to California. And I decided that I would give a friend a call who I knew from when I went through treatment the first time. And he said that he was up here in Montana, and the impulsiveness really was on my side at that point. And it just said, all right, we're going to Montana. It's cold here. I didn't factor in anything. I didn't factor in what I would do in the winter, but I just figured that this person I had a great connection with, and I really love them, and they are sober and they're in the program. And what I did know at that point is that if I feel support and love and AA is involved, I should probably follow that. So I came up to Montana, stayed at a sober living, and that's when I had met Tony. I had just gotten out of a relationship with the person who was my best friend, or was my best friend, and then I had known for quite a while, and I had completely destroyed this relationship and this person. And I was emotionally spent. There was days still where I wanted to kill myself. And I would call or text Tony, and he would tell me to do these things like pray or meditate or go on a walk, just try and get out of yourself, help somebody else. And I would do them. I remember one time I was feeling incredibly suicidal, and I called him and said I needed help. And he said, I'll meet you by the river. At the spot we meet at, just go down there, blah, 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 pray, meditate. And then I have my eyes closed, I'm meditating, praying by the river, and then my phone just goes ding. And I just get a picture of myself from like 100 yards away, meditating by the river. And it was just like, you're going to be all right. Because I decided to give up doing what I was doing and do what other people were doing and just surrender and accept that my life is not exactly the way that I ever thought it would be, but somehow in some way, if I stick in this program and I do these things, that it's going to turn out completely different than I could have ever expected it to be. And I just did this. I did the steps. We did it a little different than I've done it before. We took our time with the steps. I had done the steps twice before. And so I had come into this and, you know, we took our time, read through the book. I decided after I left the sober living that I was working in here that I went and worked at the treatment center that I went through in Utah because I wanted to stay close to the community. And then when I was not working in Utah, I was working at the sober living here because these relationships were things in my life that I knew I needed to keep close. And over time, instinctually, there's this weird thing that happens and people talk about it, you know, like getting to a meeting, for instance, your feet move, but your mind doesn't. And I just started doing these things and mindlessly where, you know, oh, I was feeling bad, I was doing something, I'm going to pray. Or, oh, I was feeling bad, I don't want to be around. Okay, I'm going to call somebody, or I'm going to go grab a guy and we're going to go to a meeting, or we're going to go play pool, or we're going to go do something, just get out of myself. We're going to go work out. And I kept doing these things. And then all of a sudden, my life started getting so much better. And it's so much better in a different way. When I thought my life was going to be so much better, I thought my life was going to be filled with money in cars and, you know, warm weather and beaches and planes and girls and, you know, the boys. Like, yeah, what a great life, right? You know? No, my life was not filled with cars. Not filled with girls either. And it was not filled with a lot of money. But my life was full. I was full. I was full off of the people around me and the things in this program. And I had a complete change of mind. And that's where, when I really look back and they say, you know, the spiritual awakening takes place, is that I was always so worried about what other people thought of me that I always had to be the best at every single thing I did. And I couldn't lose. And I always had to have the nicest things and do this and do that. And then all of a sudden I realized, like, I don't really care too much what other people think about me. I don't really care what I'm wearing most of the time. And, like, you know, these things that I have that I'm grateful for in my life, I can't throw them away in a trash can and I can't give them away. The only thing that I could do is drink, and then I would lose them all, but I could get them back. And so I just kept, I'm going to take a drink here for a second. Bubbly waters are so good. I think I fell in love with, like, sparkling water because I hated it because it was so just bitter and stupid. But now I'm just like, bitter and stupid. I used to love that. So yeah, getting back to the story though. All right. Yeah, I completed the steps slowly but surely over time. I used to frequent page 417 in the big book. If you guys have ever read any of the stories in the back, I'm sure you've read 417. Acceptance is the answer. I used to frequent that whenever I felt like something was out of my control. I would read that over and over and over and over and over again. Usually it wouldn't work the first time, but, you know, after a couple rounds, it somehow snuck its way in. And I just did everything that was said to do with no expectations on what it was going to do for me. And my life got so good. I got my relationships back. I have a beautiful relationship with my family. I was just at home over Christmas. I got to spend the holidays with them. And I was home for 9 days. It was a little too long. It was a little too long. But I got to see my brothers and my family, and we got to play games, and I get to joke now about, I get to have, I have a pretty dark sense of humor, and, I get to joke about that with my parents, and they're not like, whoa, 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 whoa. They laugh actually, which is kind of cool. And I get to show up for these people in my life, especially my brothers, my little brothers. That's I haven't gotten emotional in a meeting in a long time, but I just got 3 years on January 6th. And yeah, one of my little brothers had sent me a message, a congratulations message, and it was short but sweet, and it had just said, like, basically, you're my brother for a reason. I couldn't have asked for another brother, and it had said, like, your story is different than anybody else's, but your story is what makes you you, and that's why I'm grateful for you. And like, that's, I get emotional because in the past that might not have meant anything to me, but now it does. I can't believe the connections that I've had that I said make me feel so full. I'm so full off of life, and that's because I started in the program. And I mean, I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful I get the opportunity to speak here today. I was asked a couple weeks ago, but I was out of town, and I had said, "Oh, if I wasn't out of town, I would have done it." And then immediately I was like, "Ah, shit, that's a long time." And then I got a text message, and I was like, "Yes." And then 5 minutes later, I texted Tony. I was like, "I don't know what to do." Talking for 45 minutes about myself. Like, yeah, if I was drunk and at a bar, perfect. Sign me up, But now what am I going to do? And then I just realized, I know exactly what to do. I just share my story, and just the most important thing about it is that, like, I feel I could have gone into so much more detail about what it was like exactly, what I drank, what I did this, what I did that, but all that doesn't matter, because the way I felt was what brought me to AA, and the way I feel now is what keeps me in AA. And I am here because I have built a life that is so worth living that I don't want to give it up. Like, I don't usually come to this meeting, but I can look around the room and recognize nearly everybody, probably name, 60-70% of the people in this room. I'm 25 years old. Some of my best friends are twice my age. It's like, it's beautiful. It can't really be found anywhere else. And I don't want to give up the life that I have right now. So I'm going to stay in AA, and I'm going to keep doing the things that I was told to do. And when I do need help, I'm going to reach out and feel like a newcomer again, because I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to recognize that if I don't know what to do, if I'm in a sticky spot, if I'm in a tricky situation, I'm just, it's so easy, and it feels so good to just give up, to just not give up, but to just surrender and give up my will and my power, and have somebody else tell me what to do. And then all of a sudden I do it. Then I feel good again. I'm back on my feet. I used to have bad days, and I'd string them together because I was too scared. Let's say I had a fun event at night and I had a bad day in the morning, to start out. I could not have fun at that event that night, because I couldn't let the people who saw me in a bad mood at the beginning of the day see that now all of a sudden I'm in a good mood. They think, oh, he's unstable, he's this, and it reflected this pattern in my life of this person that I had said in my family that was just unstable, and now I have a relationship with that person. I don't feel nervous or jittery around them. I've had maybe 1 or 2 panic attacks in the last 2-3 years. In the last one that I had, I don't even think you'd call it a panic attack. I was in a relationship for about a year and a half. This person only knew me as a sober individual. They only know Aiden as a sober Aiden. And we had decided that things just weren't going to work out, and we ended on good terms. And she was leaving my house after our last conversation. There was a little present, like little, I don't know, gift on my front porch. And it was from coworkers that I have who aren't even in the program, but they know I'm in the program. And immediately I just started breaking down, and that's the closest I've been to a panic attack. But I was panicked with gratitude. It was insane. I was like, I was just so happy that I just got out of this, or this relationship just ended, and I have this thing and these people in my life that are there for me, and I can understand what they're saying. And I saw that person that I got out of the relationship with for the first time maybe 2 days ago, and 2-3 days ago. And we said hi, talked for about 10-15 minutes. How are you doing? All this stuff. Great experience. I don't have to run from that person. I don't leave the wreckage in my past like I used to, where I would be scared to see people in public, and I would be scared. I can show up now, and that person said that they needed some help with something, because they were struggling. And immediately I was like, okay, like, I'll help you. And then they had said, you don't have to do that. And I said, but I'm going to. And then they were like, oh, well, that speaks volumes to who you are. And I was like, I don't think it speaks volumes to who I am. I think it speaks volumes to what this is, what AA is. Because it has just taught me that the most important thing in my life is me, but it is not me, right? It is the people around me, and trying to figure out how to live with joy, and trying to figure out how to live with love. And it started simply by doing the steps and doing everything that was recommended. And then it continues now with me recognizing that my life is just way too good to give up. It is way too good to give up. And it was shitty at first, real shitty at first, even when I was sober. But I don't have the urge to drink. If I have problems, if I have issues or anything like that, I recognize that it just might suck for a little bit, but I'd rather have it suck for a little bit than continue to push on forever. And so I'm incredibly grateful to be here. I'm incredibly grateful to give this talk that went a lot faster than I thought it did. And, as far as me, I'm going to keep showing up, and I'm going to keep doing my things, because there's always an open seat in AA. And if there isn't, somebody will grab a chair for you and bring a chair over. I'm sure of it. And so I'm going to show up because I don't want to give up what I have today. And I want to keep building on what I have today. But yeah, thank you guys.